Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Janine Harry, a communication scientist by profession, here to give you communication tips and self awareness strategies through conversation. So, thank you so much for joining me once again. And today we are asking the question: does the best conversation exist? Is there a superior conversation out there that we should be having? And this is such an important question to ask because I've come across many quotes in which people say things like, we should be sitting with people who are discussing their goals and the future, not with people who are discussing other people. So when we come across quotes like that, we do realize that there is a standard that has been set for what is considered a good conversation, the best conversation, and so forth. Now, I believe that all forms of conversation are great forms of conversation. Every conversation serves its purpose. There is value in every conversation, but the better it gets, right? So we should always be in the business of having more high quality conversations. So let's get right into this particular video on how we can be having the best conversations. Now, conversations or small talk is definitely a form of bonding. Now, there are different ways in which we can bond with people based on who we are actually bonding with. So, we can bond through different forms of intimacy, we can bond through touch, through hugging, and so forth, right? But for the scope of today's particular video, I'm going to be speaking about one form of bonding, which we do through conversation. And there are many ways in which we can use conversation to bond. But when we actually take a closer look at the ways in which we are using conversation, we will realize that we have not always used conversation in the best ways possible, right? So, for example, we may use conversation to simply just gossip or to complain about personal issues or to complain about others and to point the finger like he did this to me and she did that to me and this is going wrong in my life. So yes, we use gossip and complaints as a form of bonding. We might also use conversation to bond as we complain about the state of the world. So this is marked by complaining about the political system, about our president, about the economy, about the high price of certain things, right? Then you also get professional conversations. Now, professional conversations occur within these very non flexible contexts, okay? And what this means is that we basically have no choice but to discuss professional things only. There is, perhaps a little leeway to discuss other things, but for the most part, the context only allows for the discussion of professional situations only. And this takes place within, the corporate space or within any type of space where work needs to be done from an occupational point of view. And then you also have some really great forms of bonding in which we use conversation to speak about our personal interests and things that entertain us, such as speaking about, sport, the latest sporting match, speaking about, entertaining things such as, the latest concert that we attended, something really entertaining and something really fun. So, yes, conversation is great. Different types of conversations are great, right? We know this by now. We know that we really enjoy having a good conversation. But when we actually pay attention to what exactly we are speaking about, when we are bonding with another human being, we will realize, as I said earlier, that we don't often use conversation in the correct way possible. We don't actually extract that moment to have a moment of really high value. We're actually using conversation and its means of bonding to engage in conversations that don't really do anything for us. And this is, as I said, it's marked by gossiping, complaints, complaining about the state of the world, and so forth, right? So let's go back to this particular question that I asked at the beginning of this presentation. Is the the best conversation that we can be having? Is there a superior conversation? And I'm here to say that yes, there definitely is. But first, we need to become mindful and observe where we are currently at. Okay. We need to become mindful about the fact that we may be in a position within life where we are only engaged in low quality conversations in which we are stuck in the victimhood loop. So let's discuss what these low quality conversations will look like. Now, as I said, low quality conversations keeps us stuck in the victimhood loop, and it only contains a part one. It only contains one chapter, and that's it. It's the end of the story, it's the end of the conversation, right? So basically, these low quality conversations are marked by complaints. And all of us have something to complain about. There is no use berating yourself or demonizing yourself and others for complaining, because each and every one of us, we have something to complain about. We all have something right now that is bothering us. So it is so normal for us to enter into conversations and not even realize that we're about to have a low quality conversation, because it has become so normalized to simply just discuss what is wrong with us. So these conversations are, as I said, it is marked by complaints. It's when we discuss everything that is going wrong, and we also discuss who the source of our problems are. So he did this, she did that, and this is why I am suffering, and so forth. Another characteristic of these low quality conversations is that no resolution is made. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? A low quality conversation can be really healing. It can be really great to just discuss your problems, because a lot of people say things like, sometimes you just need to speak about your problems. You just need somebody to listen. You just need to vent. And that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. The fact that these low quality conversations can be quite healing, because sometimes you just need to vent. Sometimes you just need to get something off your chest. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you, and that's it. End of story. However, it is still a low quality conversation because no resolution is being made. Your problems are not being miraculously sorted, and you will actually find that you feel much worse after having these low quality conversations, because it keeps you within this particular state of disempowerment, because you are stuck in this victimhood loop. And it is so understandable that we are not even aware of the fact that these low quality conversations keep us stuck in the victimhood loop, because we are not observing how we actually feel after we are having certain conversations. And that is why it is so important to do the mental and the physical check in. You need to ask yourself, how am I feeling mentally now that I've had this particular conversation with somebody? Ooh, how am I feeling physically now that I've had this particular conversation? And you will realize that after engaging in certain conversations, you don't really feel good mentally as well as physically. Now, none of us, absolutely no one, stands in a space of perfection where we can say that, oh, we've never gossiped, or we've never complained about something, or we've never pointed a finger, or we've never vented. We have all done this. This is completely normal. But it gets to a point where you will realize that, ooh, I just gossiped right now, and that really feels yucky. That just doesn't feel good. And as you gain more self-awareness, you will actually start to feel, both physically and mentally, the texture and the quality of those conversations that you are having, and you will feel that texture both mentally and physically. So yes, low quality conversations are marked by complaints in which no resolution is being made, and it keeps us in this perpetual state of disempowerment. And that is why it is so important to move from low quality conversations into high quality conversations, in which there is not only a part one, but we also allow ourselves to break open part two. So let's get right into that. Now, high quality conversations is when we break the victimhood loop. It's when we get out of the loop. And this is the type of conversation that contains both part one and two. Now, part one, as I said, it's when we are talking it out, when we are complaining, when we are venting. And as I said, this is a great part of conversation because it actually allows us to get whatever is inside out. It allows us to get things off our chests. Because I want you to think about problems as a form of energy, right? A form of really dark, dense energy. And when you keep this density inside of you, it actually has detrimental effects on your body physically. So, the best thing that you can do is to talk it out because what you are doing is you are detoxing your body from the density of those particular problems. You are getting it out, you are getting things off your chest. You are allowing yourself to let things out instead of holding things in. So, yes, talking things out, complaining, venting, speaking about the weird and wildest about this world is important. But it's only important when we can transition into part two as well, when we can transition into the resolution part of communication. And the resolution means that we need to be open to not just entering conversations to complain, but we should also be entering into conversations with the aim of receiving advice and also giving advice. And this is why it is important to be open to having conversations in which you know that, hey, I can complain about X, Y, and Z right now, but I know that after this conversation, I'm going to feel so much better because I'm actually going to be walking away with some great advice, or I might be in that position to give somebody else advice. Now, it is at this point that I want to say that part one is really easy. That's the easy part, right? It's really easy for us to just speak and vent. The reason why we don't do part two is because that's where the difficult work lies. That is where the discomfort lies. Because it is in part two that we actually need to realize that we no longer can point a finger at others. We need to actually look inwardly and ask ourselves, what can I do about my problems? And that is really difficult because it's really difficult to point the finger at ourselves and to sometimes take accountability for the fact that we may be facing certain problems because we are the source of our own problems. So, as I said, part one, really easy, but the discomfort lies in part two because that is where the real work is being done. That is the uncomfortable part of the conversation. And by now, we do know that anything that is uncomfortable, we tend to run away from that. But by now, no one has ever said that the comfort zone is a safe space to be in. By now, we know that there is something really dangerous about the comfort zone. And these low quality conversations, that keeps us stuck in that comfort zone. So we need to break free from that comfort zone and take what is ours. And what is ours, what we deserve is we deserve to have these high quality conversations in which we can have these uncomfortable topics, regarding what is wrong and how can I fix it? What solutions can be made? What advice can I give? So, yes, high quality conversations, it's all about breaking the victimhood loop and it is about transitioning from part one into part two. Now, you might be really worried at this point of the video. You might be thinking, oh my word, what on earth? I don't actually have anyone in my circle who can provide me with high quality conversations. And the big question is, what do you do when you don't have access to these high vibe conversations, to these conversations, which is allowing you to break the victimhood loop? And what I want you to understand is, and I say this really gently, not having access to people who can provide you with high quality conversations is understandable because unfortunately we have been programmed to have low quality conversations only. We have been programmed through society to only gossip, to only complain, to only feel like the victims, and so forth. So it is completely understandable when you get to this point in your life where you are like, oh my word, I have absolutely nobody in my life that I can have a high quality conversation with. And if this is the case, I want you to realize that you can always focus inwardly, focus on your inner dialogue, focus on that intrapersonal forms of communication. And if you don't know what intrapersonal communication is, I do have a video up on intrapersonal forms of communication. So please do check that video out. And interpersonal communication is basically based on self talk, the inner dialogue. So if you are unable to have a high quality conversation with somebody in your circle, have that inner talk with yourself, vent to yourself, but also come up with solutions, give yourself advice, because I can promise you that what happens inwardly will be reflected outwardly. And at the end of the day, if you are not able and willing to even have that high quality conversation with yourself, you can't really expect yourself to find people who can have that high quality conversation with you. So it all happens within you first, right? Because as I so beautifully remember somebody saying, life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. So you need to be the change that you want to see outwardly. You need to be the person who you want to attract within your life. So if you want to attract people who can provide you with high quality conversations, you need to be able to provide yourself with that as well. So if you don't have anyone in your corner who you can have these more positive conversations with, be your first source. Be the person to yourself who you can have the type of conversation with. So do not worry if you don't have anyone in your corner who can do this. You can do that for yourself as well, okay? And the rest will follow. So I'm going to leave it there for now. But as you know, I will always leave you with a quote of wisdom, like I always do. And today's quote comes from Ralph Walton Emerson, and he says, "The best of life is conversation," which it is, of course. Thank you so much, Ralph. Now, if you'd like to keep in touch with me, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Let me know what you think about this video, and please do share it with whoever you think might need to see it. And if you'd like to connect with me on a deeper level, then email me at janineharry90@gmail.com. You can basically email me to find out what resources I'm offering, or if you'd like me to discuss something, pop me an email and you can let me know what you'd like me to discuss and I'll see what I can do for you. Okay, so that's JanineHarry90@gmail.com. I did not leave links to my blog and Instagram, but you can go and check out my other videos to, find out other ways in which you can keep in touch. But for now, that's all I have for you. Have an amazing week further. Till next time, much love.